Welcome to Global Watch. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The world has changed dramatically since the United States imposed sweeping tariffs, triggering a global economic shock. What began as a political maneuver has fractured alliances, redrawn energy routes, and left ordinary people facing soaring costs. The US, aiming to protect its interests, instead pushed key partners like Canada and Qatar to seek new alliances. As energy flows shift and uncertainty grows, the foundations of global stability are being shaken. This is the story of how a trade war spiraled into an energy crisis, reshaping the world order. On February 1, 2025, President Trump stunned the world by imposing a sweeping 25% tariff on all Canadian and Mexican imports. The announcement, made from the White House, sent shockwaves through global markets and left both allies and rivals scrambling to understand the implications. For decades, North America had enjoyed relatively open borders for trade, with the USMCA agreement symbolizing a new era of cooperation. But in a single moment, that stability was shattered. The move effectively dismantled the USMCA agreement, unraveling years of painstaking negotiations and trust building between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. It signaled not just a shift in policy, but a dramatic escalation in America's willingness to use economic power as a weapon. The world watched as the foundations of North American trade were upended overnight. By March, the White House had doubled down, targeting Canadian energy exports with a new 10% tariff. The administration didn't stop there. Tariffs soon expanded to other global partners, with China facing a staggering 34% levy. The message was clear: the United States was prepared to rewrite the rules of global commerce, no matter the cost. The administration insisted these bold moves would protect American jobs and industries, promising a resurgence of domestic manufacturing and economic strength. But outside U.S. borders, the world saw something very different: an act of economic warfare that threatened to destabilize the global order. Protests erupted, and world leaders voiced their alarm at the sudden shift. Financial markets reacted instantly. Stock tickers plunged, traders on Wall Street and around the globe scrambled to adjust, and news outlets reported on the unfolding crisis. Investors feared a prolonged trade war, and uncertainty rippled through every sector of the economy. Instead of forcing concessions, the US's aggressive stance pushed its closest partners to seek alternatives. Canada and Mexico began forging new trade alliances, while Europe and Asia accelerated talks to bypass American markets. Global supply chains, once tightly interwoven with the US, started to shift in new directions. The era of predictable trade was over. America's gamble had set off a global chain reaction, disrupting established trade routes and alliances. The world economy, once anchored by American leadership, now faced a period of uncertainty and rapid change. As the dust settled, the world was forced to adapt to a new American doctrine, one where alliances could no longer be taken for granted, and every nation had to rethink its place in a rapidly changing global order. Canada, long known as the quiet giant of North American energy, had for decades supplied the vast majority of America's imported oil and gas. Its sprawling oil fields and intricate pipeline networks stretched from Alberta's tar sands to the Atlantic coast, fueling industries and homes across the border. But when a sudden wave of devastating tariffs hit, the shock was felt from the oil sands to the boardrooms of Calgary. The Canadian energy sector, blindsided by these harsh new trade barriers, faced a crisis that threatened jobs, investments, and the very foundation of its economic relationship with the United States. Yet, instead of folding under pressure, Canada responded with remarkable resolve and unity. Prime Minister Mark Carney, addressing a tense nation, warned that all options were on the table, including the once unthinkable prospect of cutting off energy exports to the US. His message was clear: Canada would not be bullied into submission. Across the country, Canadians rallied together. From bustling cities to remote towns, people united behind a new national goal: to break free from dependency on the American market and chart their own energy future. Projects like Northern Gateway and Energy East, once mired in controversy and delays, suddenly gained urgent support. The government fast-tracked approvals, and construction crews worked around the clock to open new routes to global markets. The first LNG shipment from British Columbia to Asia marked a historic turning point. For the first time, Canadian energy was flowing directly to new partners across the Pacific, signaling a bold shift in the nation's economic strategy. In Parliament, lawmakers set aside partisan differences to fast-track new export terminals and infrastructure, determined to transform Canada into a global energy powerhouse, no longer reliant on a single customer. The tariffs brought hardship in the short term, layoffs, rising fuel prices, and uncertainty. But they also sparked a fierce drive for independence, innovation, and resilience among Canadian workers and industry leaders. "We will no longer be a captive supplier," Carney declared, his words echoing across the nation and beyond. Canada was determined to control its own destiny. As the Northern Energy Wall rose, the world watched. The United States, once Canada's biggest customer, now found itself on the outside, witness to a new era of Canadian energy independence. Qatar, a top LNG exporter, saw opportunity in the chaos. As global markets fluctuated and geopolitical tensions rose, Qatar identified a strategic opening to secure its economic future. As the US turned inward and clashed with China, Qatar pivoted to Asia, signing massive long-term deals with Chinese firms. These agreements were not just about energy, they symbolized a deeper economic and political alignment. The North Field expansion project guaranteed Qatar's future with Asian buyers, insulating it from Western volatility. This ambitious project aimed to increase Qatar's LNG production capacity by 40%, ensuring a steady supply to meet Asia's growing energy demands. The UAE and Oman followed suit, deepening the Asia-Middle East energy axis. These nations recognized the benefits of stable, long-term partnerships with Asian economies, which promised consistent demand and mutual growth. President Trump's late attempts to woo Gulf states with investment deals came too late. The Gulf nations had already set their sights eastward, finding more reliable and lucrative opportunities in Asia. The strategic shift was irreversible. Qatar and its neighbors had chosen stable Asian demand over Western uncertainty. This move was a calculated response to the unpredictability of Western markets and the promise of sustained growth in Asia. The global energy map was being redrawn, and Asia was now at its center. This shift marked a significant realignment in global energy politics, with Asia emerging as the new hub of energy consumption and trade. The US found itself sidelined as new alliances took shape. The traditional energy powerhouses were now observers, watching as the new energy order took form. Qatar's pivot was a masterstroke in a world upended by tariffs. By securing long-term deals with Asian partners, Qatar ensured its economic stability and positioned itself as a key player in the new global energy landscape. The tariff war's impact hit consumers fast. Gas prices in the US soared as Canadian supply dwindled. Higher energy costs rippled through the economy, raising prices on groceries, clothing, and essentials. Inflation squeezed families, undermining the promise of job protection. Oil markets swung wildly. Brent crude plunged, then rebounded as supply tightened. OPEC Plus seized the moment, boosting output to stabilize prices and reclaim market share. America's influence over global energy prices faded as new powers dictated the terms. Ordinary people paid the price for a fractured energy world. The tariffs backfired on the US energy sector. Sky-high tariffs on Asian solar panels crippled American renewables, halting major projects and costing jobs. Oil and gas producers faced rising costs for steel and equipment, while global buyers like China turned elsewhere. LNG export projects stalled as investors lost confidence in US policy stability. The Energy Information Administration slashed growth forecasts. The IMF warned of a GDP hit. Instead of boosting American energy, the tariffs created bottlenecks and uncertainty. The US found itself isolated, with its energy transition slowed and its global influence diminished. The trade war's consequences were far from what its architects intended. Experts warn the world is now navigating a volatile, fragmented energy landscape. The integrated North American market is broken, replaced by uncertainty and inefficiency. Canada's pivot to new export routes will take years, leaving the region in limbo. Globally, the IMF and IEA warn of slower growth and the risk of economic blocs forming. The old predictability is gone. Volatility is the new normal. The US traded stability for leverage, and lost both. The world walks a tightrope, where a single misstep could trigger a deep recession. 2025 has redrawn the global energy map. North America is no longer a unified energy bloc. Canada and Mexico are charting independent paths. The Asia-Middle East axis, anchored by Qatar and China, is now the world's energy powerhouse. Russia is redirecting exports east, strengthening this new center of gravity. The US, once a dominant force, is increasingly isolated. Its protectionism has cost it influence and allies. Domestic energy transition is stalled by the very tariffs meant to protect it. The world's energy flows are now defined by competition, not cooperation. America risks becoming an energy island, powerful but disconnected. This isn't just about geopolitics. It's about your daily life. Higher prices at the pump and grocery store are direct results of this new instability. The breakdown of alliances threatens peace and prosperity, making the world more unpredictable. The trade war also undermines the fight against climate change, blocking the flow of clean technology. In a fragmented world, cooperation becomes nearly impossible. The lesson is clear. Breaking trust comes at a steep cost. We face a choice: continue down this path of rivalry, or rebuild the bridges of cooperation. The future depends on what we do next.